All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have another installment of our sort of Zoom series, and we're going to call this one uh, Steady in the Storm, right? Mental health and healthy habits for well-being. It's not just for Black people, but we need our own space, and we have individual things that are peculiar to our situation. So we want to try to speak to those things. Joining me today is Corey Whitfield, who is a Masonic brother of mine, and he is a licensed master's of social work, working in the clinical realm, working towards his doctorate. And he'll share a little bit about himself. But I'm going to pass the baton to him, and he's going to take us through some of these skills and some of this material. Go ahead, Brother Whitfield.
All right. Thank you so very much, Brother Jerry, for this wonderful opportunity to come and speak with you all about something that I'm very passionate about. So, again, yes, my name is Corey Whitfield. I am a psychotherapist. My specialties are in clinical addiction, also in helping those with unresolved trauma, professor of social work at East Tennessee State University, where I train students to work in the field of addiction recovery, also specializing in men's mental health. Also currently pursuing my doctorate in public health with a concentration in health services management and policy. So before I get started, I always want to start these things off. This is a judgment-free space. So there will be no judgment. This is an opportunity for you to be able to express whatever it is that you would like to express in an environment where you will not be judged and you will be greeted with genuineness, warmth, and unconditional positive regard, always keeping in mind that your emotions are valid. Everything that you feel is very real. And so we always want to ensure that we are validating those emotions. And participation, always optional. You are not forced to partake in some of the activities, but these are tools that can help you in your day to day life. So let's kind of talk about what's going on today. So everyone is kind of up in arms. We turn on the television, we look on our phones, we look at our computers, and we see everything that's going on from a socio-economic and political perspective. So every time we turn around, there's some form of crisis, whether it be on a national level or whether we look at geopolitics, racialized media and policy debate. So it seems everyone is saying we are more divided than ever. I'm hearing that rhetoric a whole lot as of right now. Economic uncertainty. There's been a whole lot of layoffs in the public sector and in the private sector. Inflation through the roof. Matter of fact, I was looking at some data a few days ago that shows that we are actually paying about $1,400 per month extra to live the same quality of life that we were living 3 years ago. So inflation, everything is going up, wages are stagnant, causing extra levels of stressors, right? And so constant exposure to distressing content. You're scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of the different social media things, and it's nothing but stressors, right? And to me, this all goes back to trauma porn. And what do I mean by trauma porn? This is what I mean by trauma porn. This may be triggering to some, but this is what we're seeing when we're scrolling on our phones or when we're on the internet. And essentially, trauma porn is any art or media that exploits the brutalization or the exploitation of marginalized groups for the purpose of entertainment. And so when we're strolling, these things are constantly being bombarded into our conscious minds. And so some of the common responses that we encounter when we're being bombarded about all of these messages and all of these symbols, hypervigilance. So very alert, very alert. Every time we step out, we're always anticipating the worst. Irritability or shutting down. And I see a lot of individuals that if they do not have the proper coping skills, the automatic thing they do is shut down, especially if they realize they are in a pattern where they are lashing out on the people that they love, the people that they care for. So to avoid that, they will shut down, barriers up, they don't let anyone in, and they do not come out. Doom scrolling, because doom scrolling can release dopamine in our brain, and dopamine are the neurotransmitters that kind of give us that feel good. We get attached to the trauma porn, right? And regardless of how horrific it may be, we still can't seem to take our eyes off of it. And sleep disruption, a lot of individuals are not getting the required sleep per night. You should be getting about 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. But because we're under this constant stress, our sleep and our circadian rhythms have been disrupted. And emotional numbness. How much trauma can you see before you become numb to it? It's almost like you ever talk to young people in the hood, you see so much gun violence and so much death that it almost becomes where like death is secondary. You don't even feel a response to it anymore because that becomes your baseline of existence. So, kind of discussing the stress cycle, and this is what I talk with my clients about. So, in this stress cycle, you have a stressor or you have a traumatic event. And we always feel stress in our body first, and we call that the somatic experiences. So, whether it be your fist get tight, or you start to feel some tension in your legs, tension in your calf muscles, in your neck, your shoulders, your back, the body keeps the score. And so, whenever you feel stress, you always feel it in your body first. Then that leads to thoughts and feelings. Goes to the thoughts. I start thinking about the stressor, and then I start thinking about how my body is responding to the stressor. This is when I feel myself starting to tank up emotionally. When I start to tank up emotionally, it leads to maladaptive behaviors, ultimately leading to negative outcomes. And so that's kind of the stress cycle. Another thing that we find ourselves going through under this particular political system right now is racial battle fatigue and moral distress. And so we as an African American community, we have been enduring 400 plus years of whether it be slavery, Jim Crow, black codes, redlining. We've gone through the crack epidemic. Every time we have ever got through one particular thing, we went right into another thing. And so after a while, that accumulation of stress that's unresolved actually impacts our future generation through a process called epigenetics. And so epigenetics is essentially when trauma markers are passed down through your future generations in your DNA. And this can also lead to a feeling of powerless within the systems. So if I come from this marginalized group that has always had their back against the wall, has always dealt with oppression, suppression, depression, and every other oppression that you can think of, I'm going to feel, hey, look, what's the point of fighting? Because I'm always going to come out on the losing end, which leads to this emotional and physical exhaustion. I was talking to a young brother today, one of my clients, and we were talking about black men and mental health. And for so many black men, we are emotionally beat down, tired, and physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, spiritually exhausted, because the only thing we've ever known in life was survival. We've never known what it was like to be happy, to feel joy, to be content, to find what gratitude is, to find what appreciation is. Because once we get through one challenge and one obstacle, we're already thinking about what's next. It's all about survival. So, some of the things that I like to work with my clients about is grounding yourself. And this is not about forcing positivity, right? This is about calming the central nervous system. And this is something that I've had to get myself comfortable with over the past few weeks and the past few months because I realized that I was not allowing myself to calm my central nervous system, which was leading to me being a little irritable and lashing out at people. And so we're going to go into a practice that we call box breathing. And the reason why box breathing and breath is so important, from my humble perspective, is this. In the Greek and the Hebrew, the word spirit essentially means breath. Breath is the essence of life, and it's something that we do, and we don't even realize that we're breathing. We do not even sit mindfully present to just focus in on breath and how significant breath is to our life force. And so when I get home in the evenings, I realize that, like many of my clients, the number one thing that I want at the end of the day is peace. But I understand that there's a process that I must go through in order for me to obtain peace. So, first, I have to get home and I have to find somewhere quiet where I can be to myself and I have to reflect. And I use grounding practices to help me reflect on the day. And then once I reflect, I'm able to release. So everything that I reflected on during the day, whatever worked, what didn't work, what was good, what was bad, how can I improve, what went well, I reflect and then I release. And everything from the day, I release it and I let it go. And in that moment, I can now relax and then I can rest. And then and only then can I find peace. So, to kind of give you an idea of what box breathing looks like. So, inhaling for 4 seconds, hold, and then exhale. Being mindfully present on breath. Inhaling through the nose, hold, exhaling through the lips. Typically, I do this for about 4 rounds. And once I do this, I am now centered, I am now focused, I am now mindful, I am now present. The only thing that matters within this moment is me being present with my body. How am I feeling? Where is my stress? What is my body telling me? Am I tense in my shoulders? Am I tense in my back? What is it that I need to let go? What am I holding on to? And this allows me to be mindfully present with myself. And we are oftentimes afraid to sit with ourselves. And I tell my clients a lot of times we have three different people. We have our public self, and your public self, that's your fake self. That's the person that you're selling to the community, the person that you're selling to your job, the person that you're selling to individuals that you interact with in public settings. Then you have your private self. And your private self is that individual that perhaps only your family, friends, and closest associates see. You're able to let your hair down a little bit. But then there's your personal self. And your personal self is the you that only you know. And you have to get comfortable with that personal self. It can be icky and it can feel a little bad sometimes to sit with that individual and be mindful and breathe and focus in. But this is where true healing and peace comes from. And so, another technique that I like to utilize with my clients that suffer from anxiety is what we call 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with grounding practices. And this is within your particular area. And I have to use this sometimes with my clients that are veterans that struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes they have these episodes where mindfulness for them is the only thing that will keep them from kind of veering off mentally, right? So it is see five things that are in front of you within reach. Mindfully breathed through the nose, exhale through the lips, and touch five things that are close to you, centering your breath, centering your thoughts on the objects that are near you. Feel four things. So once you see five things, then feel four things. And then hear three things. So mindfully listening, whether it be the cars outside, whether it be the children talking, whether it be your wife in the room doing something, or your significant other, whatever the case may be, three things that you hear. And now two things that you smell. Is there a cup of coffee nearby? Is there something cooking? Is there perhaps a candle burning? Just two things that you can smell, and then one thing that you can taste. Something that you were sipping on, a Gatorade, or were you sipping on some coffee? And this kind of grounds you into the moment when you feel yourself being anxious. And you are now able to tell yourself, I am now safe in this environment. I was able to reel my thoughts and my feelings in, get centered in this moment. I am safe. Because a lot of times when we become anxious, we are anxious. And this is the difference between fear and anxiety. So I talk with this about my clients all the time. If we're in the office and somebody busts through the door while we're talking, in that moment, fight or flight kicks in. That is fear. And the fear of that person busting in is what's going to make me go into fight or flight mode, because now I know I have to protect myself because there's now an imminent threat in front of me. Anxiety is us being fearful of something without there not being an objective or imminent threat. We are worried about being worried. So this allows for us to let us know that we are safe in this environment. And so some of the things that we can do to interrupt the stress cycle. So breathing, we just went through that. Breath, the essence of life. Always connect that. Breath, spirit, essence of life. Movement. And we're going to talk about movement in just a moment. Media boundaries. This is a big one right here. I tell my clients all the time when they talk about, oh my God, I can't believe how the media is. I can't believe everything that's going on. I'm so stressed. And I'm always like, look, okay, what are you going to do about going outside? How can you put some media boundaries up? Because a lot of times, what you could be doing is finding ways to mitigate harm. How many homeless individuals did you pass on your way to my office? How many individuals that did you encounter that were addicted that on your way to my office? So instead of us looking at the media, woe is me. Yeah, I know it's negative, but what are we doing about it? Because we all play a role on how we can mitigate the harm that we're seeing being caused when we look at the media. And reframing thoughts. So, cognitive reframing is okay, I'm looking at this all or nothing situation. So, this is just horribly bad. This is just bad, bad, bad. Okay, how can we reframe that? Is it really all bad? How can we look at this from a more objective perspective? It's not about it being right or wrong. It's not about it being negative or positive, but how can we look at this from a more objective perspective? And connection. This is something that we don't do often, but connection is healthy for us. And so there's a lot of literature that shows that individuals that have healthy relationships with individuals outside of their household, whether it be friends, siblings, whatever the case may be, if you have a strong social circle, you actually have greater health outcomes. So, connection is absolutely phenomenal and essential in interrupting the stress cycle. And sleep, get some sleep. Can't stress that enough. I've been telling myself that I need more sleep because I know when I do not get enough, not only am I more stressed, but I know that my immune system is compromised. And so, talking about sleep and in regards to mental health, keep a consistent schedule. If you know that 7 hours is great for you, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever time it is, make sure that you are structuring your day so that you can keep that consistent schedule and it will get your circadian rhythm right where it needs to be. And find a wind down routine. So for me, box breathing, giving myself that opportunity to reflect, to release, to relax, rest, and go for peace. That's my wind down routine. And then screens down 60 minutes before bed. So the blue light that comes from laptops and phones actually disrupts your sleep patterns. So a lot of times we have trouble sleeping because we have been exposed to the blue light that comes from our telephones and our laptops. So putting those things away about an hour before we go to bed gives the brain the opportunity to relax, soothe itself, and get ready for some good sleep. So, movement as medicine. So, walking, stretching, cardio, strength training, whatever your thing is, going hiking. You don't have to go and be what is it, a CrossFit trainer and go and hit the gym for 2, 3 hours. 30 to 45 minutes of good working out is great for you. And even if you can't possibly fit that in your schedule, when you have a lunch break, 30-minute lunch break, try to get you some steps in. Anything to get yourself moving. And this is how the brain is able to release and produce natural dopamine, right? That dopamine that you're chasing with your phone, the dopamine that you're chasing with scrolling, or whatever type of mechanisms you're utilizing that may not be good ways for you to get dopamine, you can replace that naturally with just getting active. And then again, connection is protective. And this is something that I know I need to improve in also is just calling in to check on someone, right? And I was telling my wife this. I said, like the only time my phone ever rings is when someone needs something. And I said, well, if I want to disrupt that pattern and disrupt that behavior, maybe I should just start checking on people just because. Because when I ask someone how they're doing, I genuinely want to know how they're doing. And a lot of times we ask people how they're doing, but do we genuinely mean it? Because the moment that they start telling us how they're doing, we're like, oh boy, here they go with that long story, right? We actually need to be checking in with people and genuinely want to know what they're going through because so many people are suffering in silence. Matter of fact, disturbing news, East Tennessee is number one in the state as it relates to suicide. So we have to do a better job of checking in with people because we just never know what individuals are going through. Faith or community circles, get connected, whether it be faith or whether it be some type of social organizations within our community. Let's get connected. Let's start bonding and safe relationships, right? So I never preach vulnerability, but I do preach, emotional openness, right? So, who are some individuals that I can be emotionally open and transparent with? Because sometimes I just need to let it out and let it go. And so, again, talking about media boundaries. So, no politics after 8 p.m. Give your mind some opportunity and time to relax, whether that be pick up a book, your daily devotions, just something to kind of take your mind off of the politics because um, it can be a lot. And it's great to be informed, but it's also great for you to allow your central nervous system to relax and chill. And then if you're going to be scrolling, like if you use the internet, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, to go and get all of your updated news, you can always change your algorithm. Your algorithm is a reflection of your thoughts. So if you find that you're getting all of the doomsday material and doomsday content, start switching up your algorithm. Start looking at uh, new ways to exercise or some new activities or hobbies that you want to engage in. If you start to look those things up more often, your algorithm will change and it will produce more positive content and material. So this is a big one. So fueling the brain. So roughly 70% of your neurotransmitters, and the neurotransmitters are the chemicals that are responsible for how we feel, our mood, our emotions. So 70% of that is located in our gut. And there is a neural pathway that connects our gut to our brain. So essentially, you are what you eat. Um, and so we need to be feeding our gut brain healthy food. So berries, dark chocolate, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, salmon, avocados, whole grains. These are all things that are great for our gut. And if you have a healthy gut microbiome, in return, you'll have a healthy brain, which will produce a good, healthy mood. And then hydrate early and consistently. So in the mornings when you wake up, you should start your day off with a couple of ounces of water and consistently sip throughout the day. Um, I cannot stress how important it is for us to keep ourselves hydrated and drink water consistently. Joy and meaning. So I can't stress this enough also. And I see this with a lot of my clients. Why is social media so important for you? Why is posting everything so important for you? Why are the clicks so important? Why are the likes or the thumbs up so important? Because they are looking for something externally that they cannot internally find for themselves. They are looking for external validation because they cannot internalize their own validation. And so, since they can't find purpose in themselves, since they can't validate themselves in their experiences, excuse me, or affirm themselves or their experiences, they look for it outwardly. But the problem with that is a momentary fix because I post something. Okay, I get some likes. Oh, yeah, dopamine is triggered. I'm happy. People love it. They see what I'm doing. But give it a couple of days. Now your post is not getting any more engagement. And so now I'm seeking another dopamine rush. I'm seeking more validation externally. So, how do we go through the process of being able to validate our own experiences? Because the last time I checked, there aren't any bunk beds in the graveyard. You have to be able to look in the mirror and validate the person that's looking back at you. Nature and creativity. Get outside. We live in a beautiful area of this state, right? Take a hike, go in the mountains, go in the woods. I promise you, You will be able to come back out alive. But take part in nature is so beautiful, so refreshing, and so healing. Prayer or meditation. And this kind of goes back to what I was discussing earlier, being mindful and present in the moment. And that's what prayer and meditation is, connecting you to yourself, your environment, and your higher power. Laughter and rest. So we've talked about rest, but laughter, that's food for the soul. Find someone that you can laugh with, or find anything that you can laugh at, as long as you're not laughing at someone, of course, but find ways to find joy and meaning in life. And finding support. So, therapy is strength. I am a therapist and I have a therapist. Matter of fact, I meet with my therapist every week because I carry a heavy load all day, every day. I am working with these stressors of individuals, whether it be my clients or whether it be my students. I need somebody that I can process with. So, therapy is not weakness. Therapy does not make you a punk, doesn't make you soft. Matter of fact, the strongest individual will be able to acknowledge I'm going through something and I cannot handle it alone. I tell my clients all the time the one thing that's worse than pain and trauma is the feeling that you have to carry it alone. Culturally responsive care matters. So, this is very critical. So, I was telling the client earlier because he told me that he felt comfortable because he is an African American male. And he said, man, I don't know if I would be able to share the stories that I have if it wasn't for the fact that I can look at you and I see myself in you. And that is important because we as African Americans, we respond different, we cope different, we express emotions different. Everything about us is totally different. So if you have a therapist that is not culturally responsive to a particular demographic, they may diagnose you incorrectly, they may treat you incorrectly because they are not aware of those experiences. Um, and another component as it relates to culture and therapy is strength. Um, I will say this because I interact with the faith community quite a bit, and there's always like uh, this strain between faith and therapy. Faith and therapy does not have to be either or. Matter of fact, these things can work very beautifully together. What I often tell the faith community is this, and this is just real. Any good therapist that works with a client and that client says that their faith is a strength, they are going to incorporate that strength into those therapeutic sessions. But what I will say is this, a person can find God, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Osiris, Ogun, whoever the case may be. You can find any God that you want to find and still not find the trauma horse that's in your heart. So, therapy and faith is not an and or. These things can work beautifully and harmoniously together. And community resources count. Get in contact with those things that are going on. There are fatherhood support groups, motherhood support groups, all of the type of support groups that can meet your need. Get connected. All right. So something that I do with my clients a lot, your micro plan. And this is me saying, okay, let's practice a little bit of selfishness. And we are kind of like in this era where it's almost demonized when you say I'm going to practice selfishness, but it's actually healthy for you to take the time out to say I'm going to do something just for me. This is what I want to do for me. I am going to practice selfishness because I cannot continue to pour from an empty cup. And so a lot of times we will say, this week I will do this for this amount of time on these particular days. This is what we call a SMART goal. It's very specific, very measurable, and this is something that you can do to say, for my self-care, this is how I'm going to practice selfishness, and this is what I'm going to do for myself. All right. And so a lot of times, close out, 30-second breathing or a moment of reflection. And I will now close to see if we have any questions in the audience.
Yes. How often do the breathing techniques? Is it as needed, or is it a set amount of times during the day? Like, how? What would you suggest?
So that is a great question, right? So as far as breathing exercises, these are tools that you can put in your toolbox to use whenever you feel that you need to use them. So a part of being mindful is knowing when you're triggered and being mindful of how your body feels when you're being triggered. And so if I can feel my body physically being triggered by a stressor, I can then utilize these breathing techniques. Now, for me, my breathing techniques is something that I incorporate every night. For some individuals, they may only want to use these techniques when they feel themselves being physically and emotionally and mentally triggered. So it really depends on the individual.
If I could add something, Brother Whitfield, I
Hmm.
would also say that you can use physical relaxation. And what I mean by that is like starting at your toes, you tense your muscles in your toes, let it release, work all the way up, through your body, and your physical relaxation will manifest. And it's very difficult. I won't say impossible, but it's very difficult to be stressed and relaxed at the same time in the same physical
Absolutely.
space. So that's
Absolutely.
one more thing, and that's something I utilize often, especially in meetings and things of that nature. Like you mentioned, when the triggering uh, episode may happen, you can kind of use the breathing and then the muscle relaxation to kind of help and guide you through those tough times. And nobody has to know these things either. You
No,
can do them in a clandestine way where it's not obvious. You're not sitting there like doing some kind of stereotypical breathing regimen or something like that. You can do it clandestinely and keep that to yourself if you need to.
absolutely.
Okay, you mentioned understanding the stress cycle and interrupting the stress cycle. Is there any modification to it around this time of the year, the holiday times?
Mm. And so the holiday times is always a difficult time for a lot of individuals for a couple of reasons, right? So, first of all, we become more vitamin D deficient towards this time of the year because there's not as much sunlight, which leads to seasonal affect disorder. Also, economic stressors. So if we feel as if we are going in debt to provide Christmas gifts or provide Christmas for our families and we're not able to do so in the capacity that we desire, then we become stressed about that. And then for a lot of us, we're reminded of the loved ones that we've lost that are no longer going to be present with us during the holidays. And so to me, it is being able to first identify, okay, the holiday season is coming up, the fall and the winter is coming up. What can I do to effectively prepare myself for the stressors that come along with that? So, for example, my wife suffers from seasonal affect disorder, vitamin D deficiency. So, she has vitamin D light bulbs in the house.
Hmm.
And that helps her with her vitamin D deficiency, help pick her mood up. Also, there's certain foods that she's picked up on, like sunflower seeds and things of that nature that help with her mood. And also, as it relates to the financial situation, right? Being able to be, and this is going to sound crazy, but it's just real. practicing gratitude. I may not be able to give everything that I would desire to, but I'm giving to the best that I can. I am grateful that I'm even in the ability to do that.
Mhm.
Accepting where I am and being appreciative of where I am. And a lot of times we lose sight of gratitude, and the sight of losing the sight of gratitude to me spawns into a lot of this. Yeah.
Um,
So,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
yeah. Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. I was just remarking your this conversation, I should say, just bringing up different things. And one of the things that you mentioned this season, a lot of times people get together with their families, around this time of year, and I always jokingly say the most dangerous times in families is a funeral or a wedding, but it's also the holidays because
Hmm.
everything is so emotionally charged around that time of year. And I was just thinking of how people used to say, if you grew up in a religious household or you grew up adjacent to religious people, they would always say all these generational curses. That's something I find that a lot of times those generational curses is just untreated trauma or undiagnosed mental illnesses that have plagued our families and such. But what I wanted to bring that up for is to say these are also things I think are important to teach our children and to
Hmm.
make sure that we introduce and take away the stigma of mental health for our young people in our lives and in our children so that they know they have these resources early on, because as a child I didn't have the emotional ability to articulate how I felt, so I acted out. A lot of times I think a lot of the ADD, ADHD that are non that aren't necessarily attached to a physiological uh, um, foundation can be traced back to psychological foundations, that these kids don't have the ability to articulate what's going on with them, so they speak in the language that gets them the attention, which is acting out. And that's no different than around the dinner table in our adult lives or in our family settings and such. So I just want to share, it's important to make sure that you um, bring this information and all these techniques and demystify going to get help and going to a therapist. And it's not anti-Christian, it's not anti-Muslim, nor anti-Jewish to seek professional help. Because if your car breaks down, you're not going to go see a butcher, right? And if
Hmm.
you want to cook a good meal, you're not going to go see a football coach. You know what I mean? So, people have specific jobs and duties for a reason. So I just wanted to share that. It was while it was fresh in my mind because I'm getting old. Speaking of mental capacity, it's harder and harder for me to remember stuff. So I got to either write it down like I'm taking these notes, or if I don't spit it out, I'll be done forgot it. So, but
Yeah.
go ahead, brother
Yeah.
Whitfield.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Brother Jared, to your point, right? And that was an excellent point. And so one of the things that I know I had to heal from was father wounds. And father wounds are essentially pain, emotion, trauma that are related to a father who is either abusive, mentally or emotionally absent, that leads to behaviors of aggression, hypersexuality, things of that nature, because essentially you are seeking the one thing that you never received, which is validation from your father.
Mm,
And
yeah.
um, I had to heal from that. And the first step towards that was forgiveness.
Mm,
My father was not present, not physically present, emotionally present, spiritually present. He just was not present for basically my entire life. And I had to find his story. And once I realized his story, I realized that he suffered from father wounds also. And there was this perpetual cycle of men in my family that were not present for their sons.
mm,
And once I realized that this was a thing, quote unquote, generational curse, I took it upon me to say that it stops with me. I am not passing that down to my boys. So I had to heal from my father wounds and my generational curses so that it does not be passed down.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
I have
Wow.
one last question. I hate to drag y'all any longer than you need to be here. A couple of months ago, I went to I heard a commercial on the radio, just knowing I need therapy just to work out all types of things throughout my life, young to old. And they had the Better Help Therapy. I think it was where you can go to that site and sign up. And I went to the site and I started signing up and I got like halfway done and I just stopped. I don't know why I stopped. I couldn't complete that process. But I do feel in saying that I do feel that it's important that we do that. And I think it'll be of great help to me. But I wanted to ask you about that site, Better Help Therapy, and all of that. So I stopped partially because I wanted to know that it was a valid source. I didn't just want to be signing up for something that wasn't valid. So would you recommend something like that, or?
Yeah, so okay, I'll kind of tell you how those different sites work. BetterHelp, Roulette, whatever it's called. There's a couple of them. So essentially, those are the backdoor ways of going to see a therapist. So you have the backdoor way of maybe I don't know how to directly contact this particular therapist. So I go through the back door, which is through this website. So they connect you with a therapist, and then the therapist reaches out to you. Now you go through their front door, and now you have engagement with the therapist itself. So basically, the website is just a middleman to connect you, and then once you're connected to the therapist, they get you through the front door.
Okay. Okay.
So they're legitimate. It's just that it adds a different logistics that you have to go through to connect with the therapist.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would add something else if I may to that, Reese, is that you can also you and anyone else obviously listening can use EAP, which is Employee Assistance Programs,
Yes.
to access mental health care. And depending upon, of course, the EAP that's offered through your employment, they may have financial coaches, they may have a myriad of other type of services that can help you. But you usually get a certain number. I don't want to give a specific number because it varies greatly, but you get a
Hmm.
certain number of sessions for free per. Now again, this varies per job, but depending on the job, my job offers 10, I think it's 10 sessions per issue. So,
Okay.
for example, God forbid you lose someone, you need some grief counseling. And that grief counseling, I'm talking about acute grief counseling, not long-term depression or anything like that, but acute grief counseling. They can kind of walk you through and perhaps give you some of the skills and information that you need to get you through that acute issue and that short, because grief is a very dynamic thing. So it's not as if you can just fix it like, you
No.
do suture a cut or something like that.
Right.
Mm-mm.
But those EAP sessions are a wonderful opportunity to access mental health and other services through your employment. So make sure you speak to either your benefits person or insurance company or whatever the case may be at your respective job.
Mm.
Cool.
And another thing to add on to what Brother Jerry just said, if you go through BetterHelp or one of those organizations or third party companies, just ensure that the therapist that you select accepts the insurance that you're going to be providing.
Okay.
Because not all therapists accept the same insurance.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Hmm.
Question. Um, you mentioned that one of your clients found it refreshing to see someone sitting across them that looked like them.
Hmm.
What's the importance of finding the correct therapist? I went to a therapist, was going through a messy divorce, went through the whole entire session, you know, got charged and everything. At the end of the session, oh, yes, I can't help you.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
And it was like, you hold your mouth because you can't really say what you want to say. But like, so why didn't you tell me that before you charged me that you couldn't help me? Or just look at, I mean, wow.
Mm.
and it was brunette, Caucasian lady, and I'm like, wow, okay, thank you. I called what's now 988, but it was like the before it merged with the NYCE Healthline, and I felt the therapists there or the folks on there are a whole lot more efficient than this young lady.
Mm.
Finding the right therapist is definitely something I think is very crucial, and not just like, oh, got this one and just go with it. But how
No,
important do you guys think of finding the correct one that grounded, have find the right therapist? How important is that?
so I think finding the right therapist is critical, right? And so ethically, what that therapist should have done was have said, so, Mr. Counsel, I don't feel as if I am adequately qualified to meet your needs. What I would like to do is find you someone else and perhaps refer you to someone else that could adequately meet your needs. Because ethically, as a therapist, if I know I can't help you, then I should not keep you as a client. Ethically,
Yeah.
I should refer you to someone that can assist you. That's what an ethical therapist would do, or an ethical social worker would do. As far as finding a good therapist, to me, what I've figured out has helped the most is word of mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to brag or anything, but my caseload is full because I'm good at what I do,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's because of word of mouth. So I would ask people, for the individuals that have gone through therapy and are not afraid to talk about their therapeutic experiences, who are some good therapists that are out there? Word of mouth will let you know who's good and who to stay away from. Because people don't mind telling you who's not good.
Not at all. And they're
People,
happy to share that. Yeah.
people will tell you who to stay away from. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah. If I could add to that, there are professional associations for all of this. So, for example, if it's a psychologist, the Association of Black Psychologists exists, and
Yeah.
that's a resource I would reach out to, George, to perhaps get someone who can help walk you through the referral process and kind of narrow down the scope of what it is you're looking for. And I can't, it escapes me right now, but there's also a social work version of that. Can you remember?
Coalition of Black Social Workers.
Yes, and they also have they have a plethora of resources that can help you in New York City, which is where you live, has just a myriad of people and places
Oh,
and resources and such. So, they you can reach out there. And you touched on something else I meant to mention before, and that's more for the recording than necessarily just us and talking to each other. Is 988. 988 is a resource that is a national number now. That is a basically it's a clearinghouse of resources and an emergency, sort of like you dial 911 for a physical emergency. If you're having an emotional emergency and you're thinking about self-harm, 988 is a resource you can call, and they will connect you to the necessary um, uh, people and places that will help you immediately. Well, first of all, if you are immediately having those thoughts, call 911, and they will also help you with your local resources. Here we have a thing called Crisis Stabilization Unit, and we have several other sort of emergency mental health uh, tools here in East Tennessee. But 988 is a national number that you can utilize to, if you have having any self-harm or suicidal thoughts, to immediately call someone like that, and they will help get you the help you need. Because I always tell people that suicide is the most permanent solution for temporary problems, and
yes.
you will be able to, especially when you're in the midst of that, the strength it takes just to do that, it speaks greatly to your will to want to push through that short-term illness, not illness, pardon me, short-term issues that take you to that place. So that's wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Yeah. And if you're in the New York City area, there is an organization based out of Philly called Black Men Heal.
Mm,
And Black Men Heal, based out of Philly, they have therapists set up in New York, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, DC. They have not yet made it to Tennessee. I know they did like a little pop shop in Memphis a couple of years ago,
mhm.
but they always have like healing circles for Black men. They have therapists that they have throughout these different states within the tri-state area, mid-Atlantic area. Wonderful resource to connect to, based out of Philly, but they've kind of branched out throughout the Northeast.
That's awesome. That's
Hmm.
awesome. All right. Any more questions, gentlemen?
No, sir.
All right. I want to take another minute to thank my brother Corey Whitfield for sharing all that information with us. Um, One of the reasons that I wanted to have this conversation is to, one, demystify mental health and to give people some tools and give people a place where they can find those tools in this season because we are in, it always feels like you mentioned it in your talk that we're being bombarded with negative news. We're being bombarded with negative stories about how we can or can't do this, can or can't do that. Black people are being attacked. They're being, they want us on the tip of our toes where we will stress ourselves out. So, we can use all of those different tools from the breathing to the relaxation, just the fellowship of having other people who are like-minded around you can help you as well. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody and we're going to bring this to an end. So have a good evening and Corey, whenever you're ready, you can stop the recording.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Good night, everyone.